Part 3. Blind Jesus. That moment I wanted to give this man courage. So, after receiving consent from the pastor, I urged the young man to come forward and continue speaking using the microphone. I said, everything he says is right. Though it may not have been the pastor's intention to speak in such a way. I think this young man who displays biblical values deserves to be heard some more, and so I want to bring him up front to give him this chance. What do you say? All of the church members applauded at once, encouraging everyone to agree, saying, let's do it. I took hold of the hesitant and slightly embarrassed man's hand and led him to the front. Then I handed a microphone in his right hand and whispered in his ear. Don't be hesitant, everyone wants to listen. The young man seemed to gain courage, briefly cleared his voice and continued to speak. It is not humble of me to stand in front of you like this and speak longer. But, pastor and members. The young man had something to say but could not carry on. We just looked at him in silence. You may think I am strange when I say this now. But I would like to thank you and ask you to continue your visitation plan for the visually impaired people. The young man's request brought out puzzling reactions from the crowd, as it was far different from what he had said so far. I was almost a little disappointed myself at the sudden change of his decision from discontent towards the visiting event to a request to proceed as planned. For I had fully agreed with the young man's claim that day and invited him to come forward, because I wanted to hear more of the young man's feelings that seemed to shine a new light on the issue. However, I was too hasty to doubt the man's sudden urge to abandon his opinion. For he straightened up and continued to speak. Brothers and sister, the reason why I ask you to proceed with your plans as opposed to my prior criticism regarding the issue is that of the blind people who are not Christian. As I have mentioned, blind people who have such a spirit of faith do not degrade themselves for who they are, but know how to consider their blindness as a title of thanksgiving. However, many of those without faith may be living as though they are the most miserable and cursed people in the world, just as the world expects. If I say to them, it may be a blessing that you cannot see, they immediately respond to me, friend, you say that because you are blind and you are comforting yourself. But try saying those words to a man that can see. He would laugh. Even those with faith say that they cannot see us without any kind of pity. Are you smarter than them? Even those Christians who can see would not agree with your words. A grave expression appeared on the man's face as he said this. The fact is that I once shared the gospel to a few visually impaired people, explaining to them about the spiritual realization on how their blindness could be a reason of thanks and gratitude. They, however, did not understand my words, for they lacked spiritual insight and said to me, you may want to think in such a way for you are blind, but we do not accept it, so stop insisting. I remember them opposing me in this way. That's why I am asking of you, not the blind. When you visit us, do not simply comfort us because we are disabled, but please tell us about the values are completely reversible in the eyes of Christianity. This is what I wanted to request when missionary Kim gave me this opportunity to come up and speak. I will ask for this favor and return to my seat. As the young man was about to return, I asked him once more, young man, I've listened closely to your speech, and it seems to me that God has given you a deep spiritual realization regarding these things. Since you are already up here, please tell us more in detail on what you believe so that we may not fail to meet your expectations when we visit the blind people as planned. Imagine that you were to preach to them on that very day. What would you want to tell the blind people of no faith? I had wanted to hear more from the young man that day. It was because he was not merely grumbling, but his words were filled with spiritual conviction. There was a certain sense of spiritual enlightenment in every word he said. And it reminded me of the young Jesus who corrected the false beliefs of the Jews during his public life. He resembled the young Jesus who boldly conveyed the truth and shook the whole foundations of the people's belief system, even knowing that the religious leaders of Judea would rebel against him. So I wanted to give the young man enough time to speak. I feared that his bold decision to impart knowledge on such an important realization be ignored by people just because it had disrupted a service. So I tried my best to let his viewpoints be known. It was not right for a young man with such a clear spirit of faith to be discouraged by the murmurs of a crowd. And to be honest, I may have personally wanted to push harder. Because the man, though physically blind, was more awake than any other in spirit, and the great value of his refreshing words were healing me. So I may have wanted to hear more for myself as well. Sure enough, the young man clearly had gained enlightenment through his faith. He did not hesitate nor refused my request but courageously took the opportunity and went on. Continue in Part 4.